Today's game features Mikhail Gurevich playing as white against Mikhail Tal as black. Move 1. White pawn moves to d4. Black pawn to d6, challenging the opponent's setup. White develops the bishop naturally. Black now plays knight to d7. On move 5, white pawn to c4. Black knight jumps to f6. White brings the knight to c3. It's black's turn. Pawn to h6. Interestingly, white develops the bishop to h4, completing development. Moving forward, black advances the pawn to g5. White responds with bishop to g3. So, knight to h5. White advances the pawn, creating an opening imbalance. Black knight eliminates the bishop. On move 15, white takes the knight with the pawn. Next, black bishop moves to g7. White bishop slides to d3. Fighting for the center. Black plays establishes a pawn on e6. Continuing, develops the knight to e2. Moving forward, slides the queen to e7. Interestingly, advances the pawn. Black places the knight on f6. Fighting for the initiative. White improves the knight's position. Black responds with repositions the bishop, creating long-term advantages. On move 25, white the queen enters the battle. Black pawn to c5. White opts for the long castle. Meanwhile, black plays queenside castling. White king moves to b1. Black now plays steps the king to b8. White continues with plants the bishop on c2, creating complications. Black rook to c8, creating attacking chances. White pushes forward to d5. Black continues with pawn takes pawn. We're at move 35. White improves the bishop's scope. Black now plays pawn captures the pawn on c4. Interestingly, bishop eliminates the bishop, gaining a positional edge. Black responds with queen takes bishop, a sacrifice. White plays knight to f5. Black bishop slides to f8. White takes the pawn with the queen. Black centralizes the queen. The endgame idea is clear. White continues with knight to d5. Black develops the knight to d7, not the best move. On move 45, white advances the pawn. Black pushes forward to h5. Meanwhile, white advances the pawn to e4. Black plays develops the knight to e5, not ideal. White slides the queen to c1. Black pushes to c4. White queen takes pawn on g5, maintaining a clear advantage. Black continues with brings the knight closer to the action. White responds with boldly takes pawn with the rook. Black rook takes rook. On move 55, white pawn takes rook on h5. Pressing the advantage. Black queen moves to e5. Improving piece activity. White slides the queen to d2. Next, black repositions the rook. White maneuvers the knight to c3, not the best move. Black continues with pawn moves to d5. White queen moves to e3. Pushing for the win. Black pushes the passed pawn to d4. And here, queen takes the pawn. Black continues with queen captures queen, moving closer to victory. The technique is impeccable. Move 65. White knight takes queen on d4. Black rook captures pawn, moving closer to victory. Creating unstoppable threats. White continues with pushes the passed pawn to b3. Black brings the rook to h2, shouldering the king away. So, pawn takes pawn, simplifying. Meanwhile, activates the knight. White brings the knight closer to the action. Black plays steps the king to c8. White now plays knight to e3. Black responds with bishop slides to c5, cutting off the king. We're at move 75. White repositions the knight to d5. Black brings the knight closer to the action. The opposition is key here. White responds with activates the king. Now, black knight jumps to b4. Next, white deploys the rook to d2. Black knight hops to c6. White now plays king walks to c3. Black responds with rook moves behind the passed pawn. So, moves the rook to d1. Now, black brings the rook to h2. On move 85, white pawn moves to f4. And here, black brings the rook to h4, converting the advantage. White king enters the battle. Mikhail Tal resigns. Mikhail Gurevich wins the game.